talk about the main stained glass windows that are here. There are 8 of them. They are modeled on the Basilica of Hagia Sophia, which is in Constantinople, which is now called Istanbul. Hagia Sophia has an interesting history. It started out as a Catholic church, then it became an Orthodox church, then it became a Muslim mosque, then it became the State Museum of Turkey, and now it's been given back to the Muslims, so it's back to the mosque again. But it's probably the most famous structure in Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul.
So why Hagia Sophia?
Doherty sent his architect over to Europe to look at places, and he said the ones he liked the best were some of the windows in France and some of the ones here in Istanbul, and so they chose that.
So why not model it after Santa Maria della Pace?
Windows are Roman. Remember, Hagia Sophia is in Istanbul. That was the Eastern Roman Empire. So we think of them today as Turkish, but they thought of themselves back then as Roman. And so they thought themselves to be the true Roman emperors, especially after Rome fell in 476. So they brought Roman style with them. So it's not unusual to find something from Rome in Istanbul. You can tell it's Roman because it's rounded at the top. Gothic architecture has a pointed top and tend to be more narrow. The Roman windows tend to be wider and they have a rounded top. Now, the windows are thematic. The ones that are opposite each other have the same theme. And the way to discover the theme is to look at that top vertical, what's called mullion. A mullion is a piece of lead that holds the stained glass in it. No mullions, the glass fall out onto the ground.
Is that why you called me a mullion in class?
Yeah, you hold everything together. So that top horizontal line, and if you go right underneath it, that's the theme of the windows. So I like to use the biological term genus. It kind of gives us the general category of what you're going to see in the window. And in the 2 that are here in the rear, you'll see a red hat. It's called a galero. And attached to it on either side are triangular sets of tassels, and they're red, and there are 15 of them. That's the heraldic sign for a cardinal. So whenever they make their coat of arms, it would always have the red hat at the top and the 15 tassels on either side. It surrounds what's called a metropolitan cross. And that's a cross that has 2 horizontal beams. And when the Archbishop of Philadelphia comes into the cathedral, you'll notice that his processional cross always has that double bar instead of a single bar that you might have when anybody else comes in to celebrate Mass at the cathedral. So what it tells us is that this window is going to represent a cardinal who is also an archbishop. If you go down, you'll find that there's an oval in the center of the window, and that's what I call the species. That's the individual example of the general category. And so what we have here are 2 ovals, one of which contains the coat of arms of the Cardinal Archbishop of Philadelphia, Dennis Doherty. One on this side contains the coat of arms of the Cardinal Archbishop of Milan in the 1500s, and that would be Charles Borromeo. Coats of arms. They have 2 parts to them, a left and a right. The left-hand side is the coat of arms of the diocese. The right-hand side is the personal coat of arms of the bishop. So they are always in flux. Every time a diocese gets a new bishop, its right-hand side changes. Every time a bishop gets a different diocese, his left-hand side changes. So they're always changing, and that's one way you can tell the time they were put in. So who was the bishop? When was he the bishop? The place where he was, when did they have him as bishop? So they're good clues to figure out exactly when something might have been built. And so we have here Doherty in Philadelphia. So we know that 1928, that's when that would have happened. The Philadelphia coat of arms has a vertical line with 3 circles. That comes from the coat of arms of William Penn. But we Christianized it by adding crosses to it. And then there's a pennant, a blue pennant that hangs down with a star on it, and that's a heraldic symbol of Mary. And since the Blessed Mother, the Immaculate Heart, the Immaculate Conception, is one of the patrons of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, that's why that's put. One for Cardinal Borromeo as his coat of arms, which is a rather simple one, simply has a crown, and his one-word motto, which was humilitas, or humility. Now we come to 4 windows, which have a common theme. So once again, go up to the mullion, head down, and you'll see a book at the top. And so that's going to be the symbol of an author, somebody who wrote a book. Then go down to the oval, and there you will see the 4 symbols of the 4 evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So we have the eagle on this side, which is St. John. We have the angel, which on this side, which is St. Matthew. And as we move up farther, we'll find the winged ox for St. Luke on this side, and the winged lion, which is on this side for St. Mark. They are derived from 2 books in Scripture, one Old Testament, one New Testament, the book of Ezekiel in the Old Testament, and then they are brought again into Scripture in the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse of St. John. And the 4 symbols were taken to represent the 4 evangelists to depict the beginning of their Gospels. So St. Matthew starts with the Annunciation, so we have the angel. St. Mark starts with John the Baptist, and John the Baptist is the lion roaring in the desert, a voice that is crying out in the desert. St. Luke starts with Zechariah receiving the vision of the angel telling him that he and his wife are going to be the parents of John the Baptist. And so Zechariah gets this as he's performing his priestly duties by sacrificing an animal. The common animal for sacrifice, along with lambs, would be oxen. So that's why it's the ox. And then St. John's eagle represents the highest flying bird. And it is thought that the rhetoric of St. John's Gospel is superior to the other 3. And it is from St. Jerome that we get these.
The symbols come from Ezekiel, but Jerome does apply them to the Gospels as well as to other fathers.
Okay, and the last 2 windows, again, go to the horizontal mullion, and there you see a tiara. It's a 3-ringed crown that was worn by popes up until Paul VI. Paul VI was crowned with one, and then he eliminated it. So for the rest of his pontificate, he continued to wear a mitre like any other bishop. And every pope since him, when they are installed as the Bishop of Rome, now are installed as any other bishop would be by being given a crozier and a mitre, because he is the Bishop of Rome. That's his diocese. But up until Paul VI, they used to wear this crown because they were princes. They were in charge of the papal states, so they were crowned like a monarch was. Paul VI got rid of it. But in 1928, popes were still wearing tiaras. And so we have 2 of them on either side, and the coat of arms going down into the oval will show us Pope Pius IV on one side and Pope Pius XI on the other side. Why pick these two out of 260 some popes? The answer is Pius XI was the Pope in 1928. So it was kind of Doherty giving us a historical perspective here. This is who the bishop was on the back window. This is who the Pope was up here in the window toward the front. The other was Pius IV, who was the uncle of Charles Borromeo. They were members of the Medici family. Borromeo's mother was a Medici. And so her brother became the Pope in 1559. And so because of the family connection, Borromeo was made a cardinal and then later became the Archbishop of Milan.